Okay, so picture this. You've just delivered what you know is the absolutely perfect argument. You laid out all the evidence, your logic is totally airtight, and your conclusion, it's bulletproof. You sit back, take a breath, and just wait for the other person to finally concede the point. But instead of agreeing, they cross their arms, look at you, and go, well, you're being really aggressive right now, and I just don't like the way you said that. So, yeah, I'm not convinced. It is intensely frustrating, isn't it? Well, welcome to our latest explainer. Let's dive right into this because today we're decoding one of the most maddening debate tactics out there, and we'll be exploring exactly how our source material suggests completely dismantling it. Look, if you've ever had your perfectly valid facts just blatantly dismissed simply because someone didn't vibe with your energy, you know exactly what this feels like. But let's pause and look at what's actually happening in that exact moment. The exact second someone complains about your tone, you are no longer defending your facts. Nope. You are now defending your tone of voice. Your opponent has effectively hijacked the entire conversation without addressing a single piece of your actual evidence. They've just completely shifted the playing field. So, what did your opponent just use on you? It's identified as the psychological report fallacy. And man, it is a sneaky, completely illogical debate tactic used by manipulators basically everywhere to dodge objective reality. Instead of giving you a logical rebuttal to your facts, they just substitute it with a report on their own personal feelings. And look, from a strictly logical standpoint, that carries absolutely zero weight. None. It is completely 100% irrelevant to the actual truth of whatever you're discussing. All right, let's jump right into section 1. The problem, mistaking feelings for facts. To really wrap our heads around this divide, think of a debate kinda like a game of chess. You know you can't just move a piece diagonally just because you're feeling creative, right? There are rules you have to follow for the game to actually work. On one side of the board, we have objective reality, the facts, the evidence, the core logic. But on the other side, we have subjective feelings, the tone, the energy, the so-called vibes. People constantly get hung up on the way someone debates. They'll complain that you talk too loud or you were too aggressive. But the cold, hard truth, delivery style has absolutely nothing to do with whether a statement is factually true or false. So here's the absolute crucial point. When someone looks at you and says, I didn't like that, or I found that unconvincing, they genuinely think they are making a valid counter-argument. But actually, scratch that, they aren't arguing at all. What they're doing is merely giving you a psychological report. They're just reporting on their own internal emotional state at that given second. Logically speaking, the fact that they weren't personally convinced by your tone is completely and utterly irrelevant to the factual validity of your argument. Moving right along to section 2. The agitation, the ultimate evasion tactic. Let's look at why this is so dangerous. You know, the motivation behind this tactic is honestly fascinating. When an opponent throws out a psychological report, they are actively trying to change the rules of the game mid-match. They're trying to shift the debate away from objective reality, because, well, that's a territory where they're losing, and pull you right into their subjective feelings. Why? Because in the realm of their own feelings, they hold all the power. I mean, you can never scientifically prove them wrong about their own internal feelings, right? It becomes this invisible subjective shield that lets them hide from objective reality without ever having to take accountability for just being wrong. To really highlight the absolute absurdity of this fallacy, let's pull it out of a normal conversation and drop it straight into a courtroom. Just imagine you're on the witness stand, and the prosecution has just laid out this massive, undeniable mountain of hard evidence against you. And your grand defense strategy? You look up at the judge, shrug your shoulders, and go, well, Your Honor, I didn't really find the prosecution's interrogation of me very convincing. Can you even imagine? The judge would not care. The response would just be, okay, so what? A judge would never, ever accept, I didn't like his tone, as a legal defense to factual evidence. And this brings us to a pretty massive reality check. If a judge wouldn't accept this kind of subjective complaining as a valid defense against, say, a parking ticket, why on earth should we accept it as a valid rebuttal in our everyday debates? The big takeaway here is we have to stop letting people use their fragility as an intellectual shield. The universe simply does not bend its laws of physics, math, or reality just because the truth happened to be delivered with a slight attitude. Tone policing has absolutely no place in a factual debate. So, how do we fix this? Section 3. The solution. The filter and force framework. To take back control, our source material outlines this really empowering tool designed to cleanly divorce your core factual argument from all that emotional fluff your opponent is trying to throw on top of it. It consists of 3 straightforward steps: identify the evasion, filter the noise, and force the objective standard. Let's break down exactly how you execute each of these in real time. Okay, step 1. This happens entirely in your own mind, the exact second your opponent mentions your tone, your volume, or how they just aren't convinced. You must instantly recognize it for what it is. It's a psychological report. It is not an argument, it is an evasion. And here is the most absolutely critical part of step 1. Do not get defensive and absolutely, under no circumstances, apologize for your tone. The exact moment you apologize, you validate their subjective shield. Now, step 2 is where you filter the noise out loud by verbally separating the 2 distinct issues happening in the conversation. You've got to explicitly draw a line between your delivery and your facts for your opponent. You simply say, "We can discuss my delivery style later, but right now we are discussing the facts." See what you did there? You acknowledged their complaint, sure, but you completely stripped it away from your core argument. And finally, step 3, force the objective standard. This is where you force your opponent completely out of that cozy little realm of their subjective feelings and drag them right back into objective reality. You ask them directly to address the empirical premise you just laid out. You literally just don't let the conversation move forward until they deal with the actual evidence on the table. Which brings us to our final section, Section 4, Absolute Debate Dominance, the Ultimate Rebuttal. All right, here it is. This is the ultimate psychological cheat code for the very next time someone tries to dodge your logic. You look them right in the eye, you smile just slightly, and you deliver this exact script. Your internal psychological state has been noted. Now, do you actually have a logical counterargument to the evidence I just presented, or are you conceding the point? Literally, when you deploy this, you will watch their manipulative strategy completely vaporize in real time. It traps them perfectly. They either have to provide facts or admit they have absolutely none. Look, a genuine master of debate understands that truth remains truth regardless of its delivery. Truth doesn't care if it's whispered, if it's shouted, if it's scribbled on a napkin, or delivered with a little bit of edge. As long as you let manipulative debaters use their personal feelings to dodge your facts, your logic is always going to be held hostage by their emotions. You have to strip them of this ultimate evasion tactic. So my final question to you is this. The next time someone tries to hijack your facts with their feelings, are you going to apologize for your tone, or are you going to force them to face the truth? Remember, stay sharp and never let them hijack your facts.